Welcome to the Insight Edit. Today I'm talking to Richard Cousins and we're going to have a chat about AI, all things AI. Richard is the creative director at Kaptcha TV who create video with purpose. So let's just get into it, Richard. So where do we start? So I think the best way to start is changing industry. Our industry has changed so much over the years, and I guess AI is just another change, right? So maybe you'll just want to start with kind of a bit of your background and how you see the industry changing.
So my background, it's really interesting for me with regards to AI because I started off in the world of 35mm, 16mm, working back in the days of Sky Television, and the only way you could make anything beautiful was on film. You had to earn your stripes to get to that. So one thing that I think AI is certainly doing is democratizing filmmaking. It's more accessible. You can have braver ideas. Suddenly, scale doesn't mean you're fixed by budget. So the change that I've seen very recently is just, it's been rapid. It's been so fast.
So fast.
So fast. And I was thinking about this the other day, and the way that you think how film has changed and creative work has changed, and if you even went back to like silent cinema when it went to sound, I think the critics, I remember reading the critics were, thought it was a gimmick. It would ruin the aesthetics that was silent movies. Well, that changed. Then it became colour. Colour came into storytelling. Again, critics, people saying, no, you can't bring colour in, it would be distracting for the narrative. Of course, everything becomes colour. And then 35mm, 16mm, suddenly digital came in. And then suddenly digital. You know, the imperfections of filmmaking. You know, it's not film.
But even with digital now, we're trying to get those imperfections back into, aren't we? To make it more look like film than it was. Because digital does have a aesthetic to it, which isn't as pleasing as kind of film does it. So we're kind of putting the noise back in, aren't we?
I know, and almost like vinyl in records, you know, it's almost like we want to go back to film when we can. But this is where AI, and I know there's a lot of barriers, and we were the same as creators going, AI, no, a few years ago, oof, no. But it's changing, and it will change, and we have to be on board with it. I think there's still a lot of argument about, characterizing people.
Yeah.
But there will be a time
in the not too distant
future where the lines will be blurred between what is real and what's not. I mean, we're already seeing it now. You have to almost look twice to go, I mean, my kids love TikTok, and they'll show me something and you look at it and you go,
is that real?
That's AI. I think I saw the cat's head just spin right round 360, but it is. It's moving so fast.
So let's talk a little bit before we jump too much far forward.
Sorry.
When AI first came out, when we first started seeing AI video for the first time, which I think was Sora, wasn't it? Sora did a big campaign where they had, I think they had cats, they had a spaceman, a car going down the street or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like 2 or 3 seconds of video.
Yeah.
What was I can tell you my initial reaction, but what was your initial reaction?
I'll be honest, I was actually blown away by it, in the sense that coming from the days of working on film and the productions of just to make something, like we used to shoot a lot of idents and ads, brand films, excuse me. So knowing what it takes to make something, to suddenly see this piece of work that's come out that is AI, and yes, these were early stages, it did shock me.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it because I'm thinking, no, there's a craft to our filmmaking. There's a craft to the people, the team that make a production happen. The process, was always a lovely thing. And suddenly I'm seeing this of algorithms creating this. I didn't like it. Of course, we're old school. I didn't like it, but I had to be fascinated by it. And that was probably, when did that come out? A couple of years ago, maybe?
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago. And you think where we are from then to where we are now and where we're going to be. But we're not going to jump into the future just yet. Okay, we're going to keep it in the present.
But yeah.
When I first saw the Sora stuff come out, again, I was fascinated by it. I was at first a bit scared because, we run businesses and it's like, is this going to literally destroy our business? Will will, what we do, the craft of what we do, end up being some 25, 30-year-old kid in a room doing prompts, basically. That was my initial reaction. What did they say? There's 7 stages of grieving or something, or anger, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of went through all of that pretty quickly, and then realised that actually this is going to open up a world of opportunities of what we can now do as teams. Yes, there are individuals. I think there's a difference here, isn't there? I'd love to hear your viewpoint on this. There's a difference between a professional company, production company, making something with AI and a kid in his bedroom. However good he is at creating a series of scenes, there is a massive difference. And I think that's something that we should talk about because, probably like you do, I see a lot of what is being deemed as AI slop, which I think is a little bit unfair on the creators. But a lot of AI, you look at it and you go, yeah, it looks really good, but where's the story? There's no story. It's a bunch of images put together. It's a sequence that folds from one thing to another. But there's no kind of story there. So you're kind of watching this stuff and going, oh, look, it's a talking badger to a talking and they're wearing a suit. And it's like, well, yeah, it looks great, but
you're so right.
Where's the kind of depth of that stuff?
What I think is happening or going to happen, and you're totally right, by probably the end of 2026, all these tools, and modules and VO3 and Kling and Seedance, etc., they're all going to catch up with each other. It's not going to be, they're the best tool. Which means that everyone will have access and have the same platforms. It will then mean the point of view, the story, the narrative is going to be key. And like you say, that it almost reminds me of when, and you'll remember this, and Ryan, remember this, that the Canon 5D comes out. Suddenly, full frame sensor. Everybody was a DOP. I would get showreels going, I'm a DOP, and I'm thinking a director of photography, as in lighting. And you look at their reels and it's all, because it's low light and throw it anywhere and it looks shallow depth, everything's beautiful. And I feel like that's with AI, exactly the same. It's like everybody's a generator or a prompter, but you're right, the story, I always remember, Sidney Pollock, director out of Africa and Havana.
Very, very famous
he said,
Hollywood director.
And I've always stood by this, he said that filmmaking is like sculpture.
Yeah.
You make a sculpture. That wireframe mesh, that is the story, that is the script. Everything else, the editing, the filming, the special effects, and now if you put AI onto that, is what makes the film. You take that metal frame away, everything collapses. Yep. And that's exactly like AI. Everyone can make a prompt. My kids can make a prompt. Anybody. But it's about the storytelling, the narrative, the emotional connection. Funny enough, what's just been dropped? McDonald's. McDonald's have just done...
the McDonald's advert, which got absolutely panned.
It got panned, but interestingly, and yes, I've looked at that. That's the one that they played in the Netherlands. I think it got pulled after 5 days after making it.
Yeah, they just pulled it.
Got slated, and because of the backlash, they pulled it. Now, they talk about the AI being slop, but actually, although it was AI generated, it was the narrative that fell apart. Yeah. They talked about... Christmas being the terrifying...
The bad things that happen at Christmas is what the premise of it was.
So it ruined the joyful... Though everyone loves Christmas, we all work hard. Again, it was the narrative. The narrative fell down. Okay, they sort of blamed things on the AI.
Of course.
But if that story was solid and had a lovely narrative, and you used AI well, and you move an audience...
It would have worked.
It would connect. And you're totally right, Rob, going back to, the prompters in the bedroom to the... It's a serious craft, and we have to... It's always the narrative. It was always the emotion. It's always the story. And now as people getting used to AI, and how cleverly we use it with maybe the mix between real people and AI, it's the story that will always win. We've seen it with films. You go to see a major Hollywood movie, it looks fantastic, and you go, what on earth was all that about?
Yeah, very true.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Every single time. Because I think at the end of the day, what AI really is, and I know all agencies are talking about this on it, and I guess all filmmakers, professional filmmakers who have been doing this for quite a while, AI is a tool in the toolbox. Okay, it is simply that. Yes, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Yes, it will have, big effect on certain areas of our industry,
No doubt.
animation, VFX, etc., etc. It will have a massive impact on that. Okay, and I think it will. And I guess this is what we are all trying to work out in all agencies at the moment: is how do we budget for AI? Okay, now. Let's just talk about that a little bit, I think, because it is important to talk about kind of how you budget for an AI production. My thoughts are that the budget for an AI production is almost like budgeting for an animation, not like budgeting for a live action film, because that is a different thing. Although we could go, well, we can create a live action film, but you're really budgeting for an animation, okay? Because the process of creating, I'll say it again, a professional AI film. And what I mean by that, just so everyone's really clear, is we are being paid by a client to make this film for them. Okay? The way that it's budgeted is if you were to budget an animation, because the process is the same. Yes, you're not going out and filming, but you're still having to, come up with the story, the script. You're still having to come up with all the storyboard, so the client can see what this thing's going to look like. You're still having to make the characters, okay, and what those characters look like, how they move, etc. So it's still quite a big process.
Yeah.
And I've said this on a couple of other podcasts recently, is that I think there is this misnomer that, and we've seen it so many times on LinkedIn, where someone will put a post out and say, I made this film for $150. Yes. And you go, no, you didn't. Because you are a person in their bedroom doing prompts, you're not, when you do it properly, and I think in some respects, and I know that McDonald's is a good and bad example of this, because it's a big agency who did it, who probably had lots of people working on it, so they're a good, solid agency. But when you one person doing it in their room and taking months and months and months to come up with the story, that's not how we work in the professional world. You have a certain amount of money, a certain budget, and you have a certain amount of time. There are deadlines, okay, and that is a very different thing to the way that you work with AI.
I totally agree. I think what you just said there, the processes fundamentally are the same. They're the same, and even in the moving world, when you use casting is character generations.
Yeah.
We're working on a particular project at the moment that has various characters that aren't human, so we have to build those characters, and we see that as the casting. You're right, we have to do the storyboards. We do the storyboards. Now we're using AI tools now to speed up those processes.
Absolutely.
But they still take time. So we have our pre-production, and we are using AI tools in pre-production a lot more to do treatments, etc. And it really gives the clarity to what you're going to make and really visualizes it for, and this is a big bonus, before you start spending any money in production, and if it's animation or going on, not set, because you're doing AI, filming-wise, you get a clear vision before you start spending some serious cash. And even if we still use AI tools before filming actual productions, so you get a clear vision before you spend money. But the idea of working out the timeline and the processes follows the same pattern.
Absolutely.
You spend a few days coming up with the concepts, the ideas, you do the treatment. Yes, from the days, crikey, I remember the days of having researchers looking and trolling the internet to find reference shots that match that might be 5 days a week of just putting together a treatment.
And now it's still
2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days.
So we've cut time
again,
off.
I think I need to reiterate this again. It's not a couple of hours. It's still 2 or 3 days.
Do it right. And the same with exactly what we're doing. We've had to sort of steer our current client. It's not just putting a prompt and there's a character. We're taking that character and going into the nuances and the details, and that takes time. You think, yes, if you're creating a robot, you just put a robot in and that pops. But then you've got to build the colours, the brand. It takes time. So we factor it. The way that we do it is exactly the same process. It's creative concepts, put together treatment, 3 ideas. We sign those off. We then do the storyboards. Yeah. Yes, now rather than me spending a week drawing with an artist or myself, I use AI tools, Mid-Journey, to create those, and that does save time, but it takes time still.
I think what that does, though, is it does give very quickly it gives reassurance to the client, doesn't it? Because they can kind of see what those frames are going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, even if you do rough, in the old world speak, animatics of these characters in that frame, even if it's not the finals, they kind of go, oh no, I can see the film kind of come to life. So I think that's, you know, it does depend on the client, of course, but I think that's a good. I personally think that's a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, because you iron out all those. Oh, well, I saw it as a sketch, but that's not really how I thought it would be in the animation. So you're sort of ironing all that out in some respects, which I personally think is a really good thing. Again, depending on the client, he says quietly.
It is. I mean, you can do a full treatment with really solid visuals, and then you're replicating it. And, you know, it covers you as an agent as well. And the client it helps the client go, I get it, I see it. I'm not sure about that, not sure about this. And the changes. Also, I think the AI in that process allows you to experiment more quickly as well. So in that sort of treatment stage, or creating visual references for the client, you can be braver, you can play more, and that's where AI kind of amplifies the creativity, which is kind of nice. From the days of, you know, I remember doing one commercial, it was a series of sponsorships for Champions League for Ford, and the idea looked great on paper, and it was all out in the papers about how the fan was connecting with the player. So we said, well, why don't we have almost like an umbilical cord piece of string?
Okay.
Physical connects them to the player, and it looked great on paper. And I think the chief of Ford in the newspaper that morning when we did the pitch opened it up, and it literally said on the newspaper, fans are connected to the players like it's an umbilical cord. It was like perfect timing. And he read that, came into our pitch, and went, love the idea, you've got the job.
Happy days.
But I've never been so stressed, scratching my head. I think that's why I lost my hair on that day, of going, what are we making? And we had, you know, players, and we had fans, and it was before, you know, multiple crowds. This was like 20 years ago. We had, you know, 300 people being the crowd. We had this string, and it was just like, what are we making? Now, if we had AI then, we could have done some really quality testing and gone, this doesn't work. And we can see it. It doesn't work. We need to work on this. But, you know, you're working off paper, gut instinct, great team. Let's go and make this. So that's the exciting bit, I think, as sort of creative that you can get to play.
I guess what it does, though, you know, in that story you just described there, it's almost, sometimes you kind of got to fail, haven't you, as a creative, to kind of know what works and what doesn't work. You kind of do have to do that occasionally. And I guess in some respects with AI, it's sort of taken that away a little bit in some respects, isn't it? Which, I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Sometimes I think in some aspects it's a good thing, but in other ways you think, well...
That's how you learn your craft.
By failure. I mean, the amount of times I failed, and like, I'm not doing that again. Now I realise, like you said at the time, that felt like a really good idea in the office when you're sitting there come up with these creative ideas. You go out on the shoot and you think, oh my God, this isn't working. It's horrendous. What am I going to do? And the client's going, this is great, when really what they mean is, this is terrible.
Oh, there's many of those.
Many
it's
stories.
Going fine. But yes, I think the process it's important, and also allowing time to experiment as well. So where you might be saving time, you're adding in other sections of the process to go, well, actually, we're going to do 3 days of doing high-res visuals to show the client. So although you think you're saving time, you're adding on more because you can do more. And then we treat generations almost like shoot days. So, you know, it's like with budget, and it is hard. This is a sort of a learning area at the moment.
Yeah, of course it is, for everyone, I think.
Exactly. How do you budget? Yes, you've got generation costs and things, and it's a fraction of the cost and time. You're working with the machine. And the client goes, can I have that by the end of the day? And you think, it depends on the machine, because we're working with the machine, where when you work with the designer, you can go in and change the colour of the eyes and do this and do that. So it is hard, but we try to treat it like shoot days or animation days, or so we go, okay, we've got 5 days, that's the shoot days, that's how many days we're going to generate. Because otherwise you go, it's very hard, because the client knows that you can go in and tweak and change and remodel and redo and redo. So yeah, it's tightening, trying to tighten the belt
It's that feels, although we've created an AI film, a Christmas film recently, we haven't done it within a. Thank you very
Really
much.
lovely, really lovely.
What we haven't done yet is created that. That was an internal project. We wanted to experiment, and we can talk a little bit about that in a minute. And a project I know you guys won some awards at. Congratulations. Let's talk about I think with AI, there are a couple of things you need to be really careful about, and I think it's important we talk about this, is that you've got to be careful that you're not emulating kind of Hollywood characters, okay, or not even Hollywood characters, but people off TV. Does that look a little bit like X, Y, and Z? George Clooney just sprung into my head for some reason. Does he look a little bit like George Clooney? Does it look a little bit like a Pixar character? Or a Sony Pictures character, or etc., or Studio Ghibli character. So there are some things that you need to think about. I know. If you don't mind, let's talk about production. The award-winning production you did,
Grant
the AI
Thornton, yeah.
production.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from you, kind of how that came about. Okay, why the question was. So why did you decide to do it with AI instead of I hate to use the word traditional. It sounds like it's an old craft. It was only like yesterday. The traditional way of making a film, going out and shooting, etc., etc. But you decided to go down the AI route with a client.
Yes.
So I'd love to hear, from your point of view, why you decided to do that, but also how brave the client was, because this is still a new form of filmmaking. Okay, there are pitfalls around it. So just explore that a little bit with you, Richard.
I think, Grant Thornton came to us. They doing a rebrand, and it's all based around the word alternatively. Alternatively, you have these other big players in the financial world, but you could come to Grant Thornton. So they'd already that was the premise of they wanted a launch film to show this off. Budget was restricted.
When you say the budget was restricted, was it restricted against going out and filming an idea
Yes.
you put forward to them? Is that why it was restricted?
I think it was with such a big, being a launch film with their new brand, their new voice, it felt very difficult with the money that we had to give back anything that was rewarding of the idea they had of this alternatively. So we thought, let's go in, let's pitch 3 films that are commercial level, and this is like what I was saying earlier about scale now doesn't confine you to a budget, it's the doors are opened. We go in confidently, we go in with 3 solid ideas, knowing that in the real world, to shoot those would be £300,000. And we go in and we pitch these 3 ideas and we say the way we can give you this is AI. And through AI, we can create these 3 stories, whichever one you pick. They loved one of the concepts, and it didn't take too much convincing. I have to say that Grant Thornton were brilliant. They were really sort of open to listening. They were nervous.
I was going to ask, what was their initial reaction when you said you can do this with AI?
They just wanted to know more about AI and understand it. We showed them sort of various projects, various clips, and various things to show that AI is getting better and better.
Yeah.
The initial pitch was actually we build the AI worlds around the story, and the story was a button, mundane life, hit that button, suddenly everything's better. So a lady on a tube, she's having an awful morning because she's packed into a tube, like everybody is in
London every day.
on rush hour, during rush hour. She sees a button that says alternatively on the wall, and she goes and pushes it. Suddenly she's on a floating cloud. So we had these sort of different scenarios. Now the original plan was, could we shoot real people and combine AI and real people?
So VFX.
VFX. Yeah. But the cost of that, it meant essentially getting some more money. But they said, we just can't go to that. Fine. We can create people through AI. And consistency and the various sort of models that were out there, it was getting better and better.
How nervous were you when you... I've got to ask the question because, I think creating, photorealistic, real people in in a commercial project. That's a brave thing to do.
And it's something that I almost didn't want to do, because coming background being sort of from filmmaking is, I didn't want to do that. But once we'd done all the storyboards, I'd got on. Once they sort of agreed to the AI, that was fine. We went away and worked up the storyboards. But I do remember going into the meeting, and the meeting suddenly wasn't just two people that were originally pitching through. I think it was about 5 or 6, showing all these boards, showing what we could do. Everybody sort of seeing these imagery, the imagery that we created. They loved the story, the narrative, and then it was that moment of, I think it was one of the clients just sort of looked at me when I finished the presentation, and they said, "So you're going to do this by AI? How confident are you?" I think it was a one-time, and I went, "I'm very confident." Everyone left the room, and I think I just turned around to a colleague Richard and went, "Okay, here we go." It reminded me of when you pitched films with storyboards.
Yeah.
You say it's like old school. It's not old school. How we used to do it. The client says, "Yes, great, love it," and that's it. You go and film it. It's that same bit of sort of walking out set going, "Okay, here we go. We're building a set. Is this going to work?" And you've got your napkin with a little sketch drawing going, and that's kind of how it's going to be. So I think it's yes, it was. There was nerves, but I suppose what was nice about it, yes, you can regenerate if things weren't working. You had a little bit of room. I mean, we were up against a very tight deadline, which was another big reason for using AI. We had, I think, about 6 weeks to turn it around, which was
tight.
Day and night, weekends. But there's just no way that they could get a launch film by the date they wanted without really, even if we shot something, we still wouldn't have been able to probably turn it around unless it was really basic and something really simple, but that's not what they wanted. So AI came into play, because of the scale we could give them and the time that we could do it in.
Do you know what I love that? Because I think that is the thing about filmmakers, right? Us, we're all filmmakers, right? We are filmmakers, okay? Creatives, filmmakers, storytellers, however you want to say it. That's what we do. That's kind of in our soul, if you want to go that far. But the thing about us and our industry is we are brave people. We like to put stuff out there, even if we go, "I'm sure we can do this," not 100% no, because if you'd gone down the traditional route, you know how it would come out, right? We know because experience, etc., Richard. So I think, sometimes it's just so exciting to go, there's a new piece of technology.
Let's try it out.
Let's try it out.
And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, I'll get my people to go back.
But I think that's an amazing thing to do, to be brave enough to go to a big client like Grant Thornton and say, "Look, you know, in a nice way, and I'm saying this very bluntly, you haven't got the money to do that, but I reckon we can do that using this new platform, this new technology called AI. And yes, there's some experimenting we're going to have to do, but I reckon we can give you what you want." Yeah. I think that's a brilliant thing to do. So I want to hear more about the kind of the challenges you face. We know about the process, right? It's a you still went down the I keep using the word traditional, the proven way to the proven process of filmmaking. You still went down that route, except what you did is you changed the live action filming to the AI part, right? So talk me through, not the process, but talk me through the kind of the challenges you came up against with AI, especially humans.
The biggest challenge, yes.
What would you call them? Not humans, synthetic humans.
AI generated.
Yeah, AI generated, synthetic, whatever you want to call it. The challenges you came up against, because they look lifelike, but there's just something a little bit missing, isn't there?
Totally.
So just talk to me a bit about that.
I mean, that is the biggest thing. Your eye as a human being can sit, and this is the problem at the moment. You can see, it's amazing. Even the best AI generated human person giving an emotion, your human eye can pick that up. No doubt, in years to come, probably sooner than later, that will change.
Yeah.
But because that was made a few months ago, that was the most challenging thing. The consistency was the challenging thing. We had a South African lady, one of our characters, black South African lady on a tube, sort of a beautiful hair, and trying to keep that consistency when she changed to the next scene, from her top that she's wearing to the right threads. That took time. That was quite hard, even to a point when we were getting into the generations that we thought, oh, is this going to work? Sometimes there's always a bit of luck in our business. It can be if we're outside filming, it's the weather, it could be an animation.
The moment
something
that sun just comes through that cloud and you get those rays and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
And what happened when we were struggling, Jimmy phoned me and said, they've just launched Nano Banana. I'm like,
so you're in the midst of that.
What's that? They said, well, it allows us now to change certain elements and regenerate, and that was a bit of a game changer, and it came right at the right time. So tools are constantly changing, and I know they will catch up eventually next year.
Of course.
So that really helped. But so the challenges we had, it was details like nails on the girl's hand. She's got a hand against the tube window, and the clients are picking up about the nails, and rightly so. You know, they weren't perfect, but this is the point of sort of having some acceptance, and we said this at the beginning, this is AI. We can't go in and physically change details. We can, which means going into sort of visual effects, but your budget doesn't allow that, so we have to reprompt, redo and regenerate, and we are working the machine. So we caveated it very early on. This is new. There has to be some acceptance that we're working the way of AI. We are creating real synthetic characters. They won't look like real. We know they won't, but there has to be an acceptance that that's okay. And they were fine with that. So characters is a challenge, an ongoing challenge, and will be a challenge, but I think that will change soon. It's getting better and better and better. But
Sorry, Rich, did you find when you were generating prompts, did you find that whatever the prompt was, you had to pick a bit within that video? So typically the videos now are sort of 5 to 10 seconds, aren't they? So you're not picking, it's not a 10-second scene you're using that's coming out of the prompt. You're actually going, that 2-second bit there works there, because the rest of it suddenly they're drifting off into the distance or doing something random. Or I had this great word, which I absolutely love, and I've used it a number of times. The AI machine is hallucinating.
That's great.
So we did a Christmas film recently, and Harry was writing some prompts, and then suddenly the dad was floating off into the scene. He would done the bit of the prompt we wanted, and then suddenly he was doing something random. So
it's almost like you could do a bloopers reel for AI, because you're exactly right. You just need the moment you're using, which is good in our sort of world, because most shots are just a few seconds long and you're on to the next piece, or even frames. So yes, it does do strange things, and like you said, you've only got like a minute to play with, but the bits we used, there's sort of moments where you go, that's going to work because I know the edit. That moment is all I need, that little look, that's perfect.
Were there any place, we talked about, going into the world of VFX, so you've done these prompts. Did you go back to, okay, so we can do that part in the AI platform, whichever AI platform it is, of which there are many.
Yeah.
We can take that bit, but now we need to go back into After Effects, the proven way of doing it, and make some changes within After Effects. So everything wasn't done completely within these AI platforms.
In that particular advert, everything but the nails was slightly tidied up in I think we did that in After Effects. I think we just tweaked that a little bit. Everything was prompt. It was sort of direction of, like you say, the characters. So there's one character that's sitting at a desk, and there's a character behind him. Before we cut to that scene, the character behind is what we see in the close-up. So trying to get him looking the same in the background of the next shot sort of was a challenge. You look fantastic in the close-up, couldn't quite get it to work in the background, and after so many generations. And where do you stop generating? When do you say, we've got to go with one of these generations? I mean, you generate so many to get your shot. I think I was reading, funny enough, this morning about the new McDonald's holiday advert. 70,000 generations.
Which is insane.
70,000. I mean, we banged through a lot. When do you start? At some point, you've got a delivery date. You've got to go, we're going with that one. Or I use a bit of that one, a bit of this, and I'll redo the edit, and I'll make that work. But it was things like, he would push the button in a desk. He's in a sort of very dull sort of office environment. He would hit the button. Suddenly the world would change around him, and he's sitting in this beautiful, idyllic forest with reindeer, with deer behind, sitting back, relaxing. Fantastic. So things would happen in the shot. For example, one of the generations, he had other office workers behind him. He would push the button, and it'd be like an avalanche of mud and grass engulfing the people behind. And you think, no, that's not going to wash. And then you get a generation that you go, that's fantastic. The grass is growing and flowers are growing around him. But suddenly, what's that deer doing in the background? It's standing on its back legs. I don't want that. That's the frustrating bit. So you have elements in the shot, you go, that is perfect. That bit's not. But of course, you, without going into special effects, you've got to do the whole prompt again, and that's the challenge. Now, where I love AI is when, and we've been doing some pitching with a recent client, is how we combine visual effects, AI, and real people, and that's where it excites me. So you're using it as like a visual effects tool, but you've got the other collaborators working.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of that kind of.
It's interesting.
So we and this is a while ago. It's actually last year. We shot a series of interviews. We went into quite a small room, lit the interviews, and in the shot you can see all the lights and everything. That was not a style thing that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Effectively, what we did was we extended the scene out. This was before Nano Banana, but extended the scene out, and then put their colours behind our real world interviewee, and it worked beautifully. And you would never know that the lights, how we shot it, was how it looked in the end. So we've done that way. Interestingly, and I think this is a great thing actually, talking about different approaches to create kind of AI film. So I said we've recently done this Christmas film. We took a slightly different route with it. So we had two artists doing character development because we wanted to make sure it did not look like Pixar or Sony or one of the very recognisable Hollywood studio where they have their characters. We wanted to look different, and one of our team, Ryan, created a sort of papier-mâché feel, which didn't feel like it was associated with any of those kind of big studios. And what we did was we were generating kind of the fish on green screen background so that we could effectively comp all the scenes together in After Effects. So we went down the slide, not every scene's like that, but a number of the scenes are like that. So we could kind of comp everything together. And I guess have a little bit more control over, but we were still generating. I think we did it in 6 days, but again, it was creative freedom.
Yeah.
It was an in-house project, so we didn't have those constraints of time. And I think what that gave us was, like I said, more control, but it allowed us to tweak a few things here and there, and then we needed something in the background. Well, okay, so we'll generate that on a green screen background, and then we comp it into the background. So that's we probably did it slightly different. I can understand why you went down the completely that route, because we have got those skills in house. So, but it's interesting for us in that what we found, if you watch the film closely, there are a lot of inconsistencies in the papier-mâché fish. The characters actually not so much, but in the fish, there's inconsistencies. If you were doing this in a commercial capacity, I would say professional. We are professionals, right? In a commercial capacity, we were getting paid to make it. Again, like you did, you had to put those caveats around. If you want these fish to look absolutely consistent through the whole thing, we need to go down the proven route. We've got to make this in a 3D world, and then obviously the budgets are like
or more time and longer time to experiment, play, and keep trying to get it right. But why your film works so beautifully, because the animation is lovely, it's going back to the narrative. You accept things like the worst film made, just visually, if you're connected to those characters and you're enjoying the story, you forgive all that because you're so connected.
You're talking about the Blair Witch Project.
I think there's been quite a few films that are probably not visual, but once you're connected and once you're not looking for imperfections, you're not sort of questioning things. You're engaged in the story, and
Absolutely.
that's what your lovely, cute story with the fish gives you. You're not even looking at that. You're wanting to know, is the fish going to be happy?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? There's intrigue. You're taken on a little journey, and that's so important. And more so, going back to about all the people that generate and that we've seen on LinkedIn every 5 minutes there's another piece of work, and I've done it in an hour, and well done you, and that's all great. But it's the story. It's the story. It's so important.
sometimes I think as filmmakers, creatives, we sort of, people can get a bit tired of saying that, of us saying, like, it's about the story, it's about the message you want to put across.
Exactly.
Fundamentally, like you said with Sidney Pollack, the frame, without that frame, it all falls to pieces.
Yeah.
So, you absolutely have to get that story right. And in some respects, spend more time on that bit than you do on the production bit, because if you really get that bit right and it works, and again, with the beauty of AI, you can visualize that pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The future, Richard, it's been, I think it's been, what, 2 years, 3 years since
the rapid movement
VO came out?
Scary, yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts? Good, bad, good versus evil?
If I had a choice, I'd want to keep to conventional ways. I wouldn't want to change, but you have to change.
That's really interesting.
Everything changes. The process is changing. How we collaborate. AI is not a automating task tool. You actually start collaborate with the machine, and that's scary stuff. The future, it's here. Interesting, with that Grant Thornton film, when we put it out and put it on socials and put it on the Instagram, of course you get backlash. You get people saying it's a copycat, it's slop, it's this. I get that, because but my feedback to them was, if you don't get on board, you will get left behind.
Yep.
Any agency, you will get left behind, because it's here and it's changing. It's just like going back to 1927, they introduce sound. Don't want to do that.
Or non-linear editing systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, tape is the best way. No, it's not.
I know. I still remember being in the audio suite and you had the old, is it called it inch?
Oh, yeah, reel to reel. Yeah.
And, it was going digital and we were scratching your head. How does that work? And, of course, it's second nature. AI will be exactly the same. I mean, you look at all, big studios and agencies are employing AI prompters and generators. There will be, yes, I know there's always that fear of job losses. I mean, we can see it now and it breaks my heart. I'm doing storyboards using machines rather than storyboard artists, and storyboard artists give you the angles, you work with it. If I had a choice, of course, but the budgets we're working with are more restricted. Things are getting tighter and have been, thanks to the political landscape and COVID. We've had our challenges with budgets. It's how you survive as an agency and what you do. So it's here. It's how, the one thing that AI will never give us, and I think when we're doing stories, is that we live human stories. We live it ourselves, and that's how we write our narratives and come up with animations. They're all relatable, and so fundamentally you need people to do that part. It's how we use AI to help us tell those stories and where it fits in. I guarantee if we catch up in 5 years' time, AI will be at the forefront of everything. I mean,
I don't think it'll be 5 years, Richard.
No,
I really don't. I think it'll
be by the end of 2026.
Because the bottom line is these big technology companies. Because in all of this, the big winners of the technology companies, they are the Nvidias of this world, the Metas of this world, the Googles of this world. They are the big winners in all of this. I absolutely fundamentally believe is if, as an agency, you don't move forward and really, really get to grips with what AI can and can't do, and that, again, that will change. And I mean, you think how far we've come in, 2 or 3 years, how far we're going to come in the next year, 2 years, as the technology improves. I mean, there's already editing tools out there now where you can edit the AI. There's already, AI can now generate sound. How good that is. I mean, with the film that we made, yes, it was generating some sound, but it was rubbish, frankly. But also things like, the song that we had on our Christmas film, that was AI. Like the guy, it's not. It's how it's sort of this terminology around. It's a guy. It's a male singer. It's not a singer. It's an AI voice. But that was all done through AI.
I have to say, it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, what we did was, the theme was, I wish it could be Christmas every day. So we took just those words, and then the rest of it, we built the song out ourselves. These are the things that we want in the film. And we built it out, and that's why that song works for the film. But I know we keep saying it. It goes back to story.
Yeah.
How can you do that? How can you give that emotional connection with an audience through the film you're making, whether that's live action, animation, or an AI film, animation or otherwise, right? That's what it comes down to for me. It's about the story.
I think it's like we're not going to be saying, can we make this film? You know, when you get the budgets or the brief, can we make this film? It won't be. It'll be, how are we going to make it? It's like it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible now. It's like, how are we going to tell that story? It's not like, oh, we can't do that because of the budget. Well, now we can. To a degree, because like we talked about the processes. There is a process when you have to factor in time and days. We're not in our bedroom spending hours doing for free. Everything has to be factored in. But it will be, how can we make this? Not how can we make this? Not rather than can we make it?
I guess in some respects, and no, that I think I can say is confidently that this has changed. The only limitations now is us. Yeah. Is our imaginations, isn't it?
Exactly, and now we can think bigger. And as agencies, you've got where commercial agencies with huge budgets, you can compete with them now with the stories. It's like I was saying earlier, it's now accessible. It's if you've got a big idea, and like when you're coming out with the ideas for your lovely fish film, and Ryan was telling me that he came up with this sort of big idea, you can do that if it works, but you pulled it back, and it's about the narrative. And so I think it's like I used to say, it was a scary time. It's sort of, for me, I've got on board with it, and it's sort of an exciting time.
Really exciting time. I'm excited by it. I'm genuinely excited about, what are the new things that we can offer up to our clients? What are the new services we can offer up that they can make, keeping it within the context of their brand.
Yeah.
And some of our clients are like, not really, not just yet, but I
think that's the thing, and that will change.
Yeah, it will change.
For Grant Thornton trusting us and being brave, they said, we're going to be brave and we're going to trust you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did, because I think it was the most watched thing on LinkedIn for them, and they were just over the moon, and we're thinking,
brilliant.
Thank goodness, I'm glad that went well. And we already led on to another commercial, which I can't talk about the client, but that's led on to this, and as an agency, we were understanding it more and more.
Yeah.
We're getting braver and braver, and we've got the confidence to say to the client, we can do this if you trust us. So it's changing very, very quickly. But I have to give credit to the people that do. I don't even know what we call them now. It's like the generators, the artists, the
prompters.
Prompters is always a strange name.
It is a strange name, isn't it?
I'm just prompting an algorithm, and and so I sort of see them as AI artists.
Yeah.
I use it in the pre-production, so storyboards, coming up with concepts, trying them out, play around with that, working with specialists is really key. It's like you have so many platforms out there, they all have different benefits, and knowing every single one, that's why we work with these guys. But it's exciting times. I know there's a lot of fear about, what about jobs? What's it mean to us? Isn't it? Mate, I think it opens doors to sort of new roles. I mean, I was reading about in classes now, they're going to bringing AI models into sort of the creative process if you go to university, and it's got to be built in.
Absolutely, it's got to be built in, because these are the future filmmakers.
Yeah,
whether we like it or not, these will be future filmmakers. I still, I do think there will always be a place. Again, I think it's important to say it's a tool.
Exactly.
Right. If you think about the recent Apple, I think it was Apple commercial that came out with the puppeteers. Okay, they could have done that in AI, but they actually chose to go, no, we're going to do this with real people, with puppeteers, and it just has a beautiful kind of feeling about that, the song that they created. So this will just be part of the kind of ecosystem of creativity is what it'll be. It won't be the thing. I mean, yes, it feels like the thing at the moment.
Yeah, because it's
moved
so quickly.
It won't be the thing. James Cameron will still go out and make Avatar. All the other, A24 will still go out and do live action films. It's just a tool.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally right. I think it's just because it's moving so quickly, and it's just everywhere at the moment. Yeah. Everyone's talking about it. I think it'll be calmed down, but it is a tool. It's like when visual effects started in films and started play with the real world. I'm sure critics are going, what are you doing? Why are you playing?
Yes.
It's another tool. It helps amplify our creativity. And I think, in time, it's how we use it. And, at the forefront, it's got to be the narrative and the story and the emotion, the connective, how you want it to connect to your audience. It's, like you say, it's another tool.
But I think we can both agree that it's a very exciting thing that's come our way. And, we will be imagining worlds which we could have never imagined before and make it for our brilliant clients. And,
Exactly.
It's a good thing that's happened.
I will still be going into the client saying, let's shoot this on 35mm. That's what we'll be doing. But yeah, no, exactly.
Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks
for having me.
Cheers, Richard.
All right, thank you.
And that's it for this episode of The Insight Edit. If you'd like to have a look at the 2 films that we've featured in this podcast, then you'll find the links below. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, if there are any subject matters you'd really like to explore with us, we'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching.